Welcome to the Ascend Your Success podcast. Whether you're just starting out or are a veteran looking to grow your business, you're in the right place. Join us to learn how to achieve financial freedom while working and living life on your own terms. Hear valuable insights, strategies, and interviews with successful entrepreneurs. Get ready to achieve the success you've always dreamed of. Ready? Let's go.
What's going on, guys? My name is Wyatt, and this is the Ascend Your Success podcast. Before we get rocking and rolling real quick, I just want to tell everybody, we've kind of started doing some new things. We've opened up a 506c, and we're starting to raise capital for investing in real estate. So if you've ever thought about investing in real estate passively, especially with people like me and my partners, then go to fundyoursuccess.com or DM me on Facebook, and let's have a conversation about investing together. But let's get into this because I'm excited. I've got my friend Alan Franks here, who is the author of Empowered Money, and he's a certified financial planner. A little different from the normal people that we usually have coming on here, but you are not just a traditional financial advisor, right? It's really interesting what all you guys do. So I'll do a terrible job at introducing you. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on today. And when I wrote Empowered Money, it was try to cram 15 years of knowledge into a book there, so that if somebody was graduating college on a Saturday and starting work on a Monday, they'd have a really good guide path. And when you look at the different ways you could build wealth, particularly here in America, the three main ways are going to be by checking that box when you're at work to put money into a 401k and do stock markets, right? The second one is to own the real estate that you live in, so real estate, right? And the third one is to create and sell a small business, right? Which is by far the hardest one to do. And so when we're looking at working with clients, it's great if we can check all three boxes, but we don't need all three. Matter of fact, we can create massive wealth with just one of them if we want to focus in there. But ideally, we like to check one or two, at least two of those boxes there. And so what that means is, hey, real estate is a large part of somebody's financial plan. It can really help what we call bridge the gap from the life that we're currently living to that unlived life within that we really do crave. That's our goals. That's our visions. Right. So it can really help us accelerate our wealth building. And so what we do more so, in my opinion, than any other advisor I've talked to is we help people understand how they can incorporate real estate into their overall financial plan, how it fits, and how it complements all their other assets.
Right. And I love, number one, that you're not just pitching this stuff, you're doing it, right? You're an investor yourself. I was just having a conversation with a mastermind member of mine that just recently joined. Dude's a pretty wealthy guy, but he needed to get some things organized, and he wanted some other investment strategies too. And so we were talking about the fund. We were talking about other avenues outside of the traditional real estate avenues, and that's what I love about real estate is there's so many different ways. We've talked about syndications, we've talked about private equity funds, some of the things that we're starting up like Fund Your Success. And so there's so many different ways you can go about it. You don't have to just be the guy with the hammer going in and buying a house and trying to flip it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny, if you ever ask a financial advisor to see their financial plan, they'll kind of hesitate a little bit, right? And the truth is that's because most financial advisors aren't really planners. They're salespeople. And what do salespeople do? They live paycheck to paycheck. They live commission to commission, right? And so if you were to ask them to see their financial plan, it may not look so good. So they don't show it to you. But I'm an open book on what I do. I started off with real estate. I have 6 rental doors now. A couple are duplexes, right? And so we're getting a nice little passive. And I say passive. That's not passive. That's active, man. You owning your own residential doors is active. And I don't have that time anymore. So I switched over to syndicates. We've got a 130 unit that just became actually a 170 unit apartment complex that should break ground in Q1 of 2026. I'm excited about. And then even more passive than that is we've gotten in on the hard money lending side too. I really like looking at this market and say, hey, in 2021, our clientele launched about 20 Airbnbs. right? That was why, because you were an idiot if you weren't doing that back in 2021, right? Now you're kind of an idiot if you're doing it, right? You're going to be losing a couple K a month of cash flow, and it's going to be more of a long-term asset, and maybe it's a good tax play under the new bonus depreciation rules here. But in general here, what we've had to do is take a step back from when I wrote that book, when I basically just kind of outlined house hacking and how that works, right? From when I wrote that book to now, the world is totally different when it comes to real estate, right? It's totally different in a lot of ways, but real estate is probably the biggest one that's been impacted, right? So looking out there, where are the opportunities? Well, heck, interest rates are really high, meaning it's really expensive to go out there and borrow money and to buy a house that's already overvalued. Well, guess what? That means that the interest rate when you're loaning money out is going to be a little bit higher. So where we've found some opportunity here is in that hard money lending space where we are more the lender than we are the owner.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I love it, man. I kick myself, which, the thing is like over the past 5-6 years, we've built relationships with enough people to where when we started launching this, it was easy. Like we raised a little over $1 million in the first 2 months because of those relationships we built. We would have never been able to do that, maybe, but I don't think we would have been able to do that without building those relationships first. And so I think it's really important. So, like, most of the people who are going to be listening to this are in real estate, looking to get started in real estate, things like that. So where do you come in play? Do you think it's smart to have a conversation with you and your team like right out the gate, or you think we need to do some deal? Like what does that look like to work with you?
Yeah. So in today's world of Instagram and TikTok and Twitter, and the way these algorithms work is that we tend to get really narrow-minded in our focus, right? So I think I've talked to you about this, Wyatt, but what we found is we've got our real estate bros, our crypto hoes, and our stock junkies, right? And if you're a stock junkie, you see everything through the capital markets. If you're a real estate bro, you see everything through real estate. And if you're a crypto hoe, that's your world, right? And congratulations to you. Last week was crypto week. You're probably a lot richer than you were the prior week, right? And what's funny is if you were to ask any three of those who's right, they would all have a really good case for being right. Because guess what? The last 10 years, it's been really easy to be right. Not every year is going to be, and not every decade is going to be like the last decade. So what we like to do is we like to take a more comprehensive approach. We like to say, hey, how can these assets start to complement each other, right? How can our real estate portfolio that we kind of look at as almost like a bond portfolio, very safe here, how does that dictate and affect the way that my stocks should be invested, right? So, if somebody's getting close to retirement and they should have a 60-40 portfolio, but they have 10 rental homes that are kicking off income, well, shoot, I don't think they need to be 60-40 in their investments, right? We need to look at that real estate, and I like to look at it as not necessarily a bond, but maybe like a well-paying dividend stock, right? It's going to give you a nice income. It's going to grow 2-3% every single year, right? And it's going to have some awesome tax advantages along with it, right? But what we do in meeting with us first, more than anything, is we're going to help you find the money. We're going to help you get creative, right? We're going to help you do what we call corkscrew thinking of saying, hey, all right, how do I get my feet in the water? And, when people sign up for your courses, they're probably dipping their toes in the water, right? And what we want to do is we want to kind of be that lifeguard there to say, hey, listen, here's the deep end. I've been swimming in this deep end for 15 years. My clients have been in there with me. I want to let you know when you're ready to swim. I want to help you get trained to be able to swim in the deep end. And then I want to hopefully give you the confidence to jump in 2 feet in, right? Because that's what a lot of people are missing right now. So they have the knowledge. It's just there's that difference, right? That difference we talked about earlier. What we do as financial planners is bridge the gap between the life life we're currently living and the unlived life within. Well, that's beautiful. I didn't create that, right? That's from The Art of War, Preston Satterfield, The Art of War there. And what he said is that, hey, we all have 2 lives, the life we're living, the life within, and in between those is fear, right? And that's what that's what's costing us time, is that indecision that's rooted in fear is really costing us. So yes, I would reach out to us immediately here to help you assess what we can do, help you maybe find the money to go do it, but more importantly, just to give you a sounding board to say, hey, I haven't done this before. I'm a little scared.
Well, there's a lot of things that when we had our first meeting with you that we were like, we've been doing this for 6 years, and we're like, well, we didn't think about that. We should probably implement this, right? And so, like, if somebody would have told us this in the beginning, it would have been, a much more organized, much better presentation. We would have been, our families would be safe. If something was to happen to us, like if something would have happened to us 3 years ago, who knows what would happen to our families, right? But
Totally. And I would say this, a couple of things here. Real estate, whether you're a realtor or a real estate investor, oftentimes you don't look at it as a business, right? Well, I look at all these as LLCs and businesses, and we want to maximize the tax code to the best of our ability here. But what we can do as financial advisors that no amount of research or ChatGPT is going to be able to do is we can give you perspective. Hey, we've done this over and over and over again. We've done it personally. We've done it with our clients, right? And we could say, hey, here's what we're seeing that's working. Here's what we're seeing that's not working, right? The other day, for instance, I was on the phone with a client and a dear friend of mine, and they were looking at buying an Airbnb up in LJ, which is up here in the North Georgia mountains, right? I said, hey, listen, I'm glad you called me. Hey, I think it might be a great long-term investment, but you need to be willing to be able to eat $2,000 to $3,000 a month of losses here starting out. It was like, what? What's going on? It's like, yeah, man, get the numbers from the realtor, ask for the rental history, ask for the expenses. You're going to see that this is going to maybe cover the mortgage, but nothing else, right? And so he went in there, and how did I know to tell him that? Because I already have 2 or 3 clients who are losing $2,000 to $3,000 a month on cabins, right? So it's helping you understand, hey, here's what's working, here's what's not working, here's how we pivoted. There's always opportunity in every single market. It's just, hey, kind of like that book, Who Moved My Cheese? Just what got us here may not get us there. Like my strategy pre-COVID and during COVID is not going to get me to where I want to go, right? So you have to pivot, which is tough because we know we're comfortable with what we know.
Yeah, right. And exactly what you said. And I say it probably every podcast, everybody who listens to this probably hates it by now. But it's like, we're not telling you to do anything we're not doing ourselves. We've got coaches. We have people around us that are advising us, who are telling us, what we need to do. And again, if I could have started way earlier, I would have, because there are things that could have saved me from making the bad decisions that we made, in the past, right?
100%. So Wyatt, I don't know what you charge for your coaching program. I'll let you guys know. I pay $50,000 a year for coaches. I've been doing this for 15 years. I pay $50,000 a year for coaches. That's line item. Why? Because a coach can take me. I've just had a coaching session this morning of somebody who does high level business planning for the last 35 years. And he charged me $7,500 to get into a year-long program. I said, sign on the dotted line. He's taking the best of the last 35 years and delivering it to me over the next year. What are we doing here, right? So actually the way that I got into real estate was we wanted to get an Airbnb in the mountains. Here we go again. We really like the mountains. We want to get an Airbnb there. And we just couldn't pull the trigger, right? And then we saw this course by a guy named Mike Shogren of STR Secrets. He's known as an Airbnb guy, I think, on Instagram. He's built a great business, and now his coaching course is something that I probably would not have signed up for the cost at this moment in time. But we took his course, and he said, hey, you know what? Airbnbs in the city actually do better than in the mountains or the beach because they're more consistent. They're closer to hospitals. They're closer to universities. You've got business travel. It's not just weekend travel. It's not seasonal. And we said, we can do that, right? So we were living in our house in Roswell, Georgia. We said, you know what? Let's go. And we found this awesome 2-bedroom, 1-bath right in the city of Atlanta with a great ADU in the back. We're like, hey, we're going to have 3 listings, the front, the back, and all together. And we were really comfortable with that. Well, what happened? Well, shoot. We put it together and we love the area so much. We love being able to walk to the coffee shop, have a taco shop at the top of the street. So we actually ended up renting out a Roswell house, moving into the Airbnb, and then renting out the back. And then pretty soon we saw a duplex come for sale on the street over, and we were able to go buy that one too, right? And so those courses helped accelerate our wealth building exponentially. That's what knowledge can do, exponentially. So of course, at any point in time, if anybody could say that their college was a waste of time, right? What do we actually retain from college. Not that much, right? So any course you do, there is a risk that it will be wasted knowledge. And that's why I actually give away my book for like $20. Is that it cost me 17 to print it, right? I give away my knowledge. Why? Because knowledge is cheap at this moment in time, right? The reason you hire a coach is for execution. You tend to do what you pay for. If you go online and it's free, oh, that's really nice. It's intellectually stimulating. Thanks for your time, right? Oh, I paid X amount of money for this knowledge. I need to go act on it. So I hate to say it, but you got to pay for your coach.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. And I'm sure you see this too. We joke about it all the time. We have these people that you see on these Facebook groups. I made a post about it the other day, and you see the same people asking the same questions on these Facebook groups. They're, oh, well, I paid for this course and I got screwed, or this, that, and the other, and woe is me and all that. And it's like, man, you don't need a CRM. You don't even have leads. You don't need to buy another course, virtual course. You're not taking action anyways. Like, you need somebody that's going to hold your hand and keep you accountable and push you in the direction that you need to be going. Obviously, we're not going to do it for you, but you need somebody to say, hey, here's where you start. This is the next step. This is the next step. And I will always and continually pay for mentors to teach me and hold my hand and do that for me, right? When I started real estate, I paid for a coach to teach me real estate. When I wanted to take it to the next level, I paid for another coach to take it to the next level. When I started coaching, I paid for a coach to help me set up my coaching business. When I started this fund, I joined a hard money mastermind. And I will continue to do that. Hundreds of thousands of dollars to coaches, like you said. And the thing is like, if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I don't have that money. I didn't either. My first coach was $18,000. I had to fill out an application for it. And on the application, I put $5,000. I really only had $3,000 in my bank account. I just thought that would help me by saying that, right? But I ended up going out, finding that money, and making it work. And I'll tell you this, most good coaches are going to work with you on that. If you're serious, if you're a hustler, they'll put you on some type of payment plan, or they'll direct you into a location where you can find that money. And I always say, can I make that money back in 6 months? 6 months to a year, and every single time, 6 months, I've made my money back plus some, because I get to skip the line. I get to do exactly what they tell me to do and ride their coattails, right?
That's right. And it's a little bit too. Great book is Who Not How. Who Not How, right? And so, for instance, I don't need to know how to do hard money lending. I don't want to start a fund like you do. I don't. I just send my money to you, right?
Right.
The money
Right.
to you, and then you take care of it, right? You've spent the time coaching on it, right? You spent the time coaching. You spent the time vetting the deals. I don't have time for that, right? So when we're looking at hiring, whether it's a coach, whether it's doing hard money lending, whether it's a financial planner, it's important that we stop asking, how do we do this? When we ask how we do it, we're going to get stuck, because guess what? It's a hell of a lot more complicated than you can ever imagine, right? But when we ask who, not how, but who can help us do it, all of a sudden we can now scale. As a human being, we can scale, right? And now all of a sudden we have speed. We have speed of execution because we have somebody who's well-trained, experienced, and has spent their days waking up thinking about it, going to bed dreaming about it, right? So who, not how, on there. And then, one other thing I would tell you is that if you're listening to this, and those people that are on the Facebook that are saying, hey, got screwed by this course, and sometimes there might be some merit in there, but if they got screwed by every course out there, guess what? It's not the course. It's that, right? And the truth is, once again, I hate to go back to fear, but there's really two major fears that I want you to think about. One is what we call FOMO, fear of missing out, right? So that person that, came to us and wanted to do the Airbnb in the mountains, well, they had fear that they missed out on the gold rush of the Airbnb in the mountains. Guess what? They did, right? But there's another fear, and that's FOMO, the fear of messing up. And the reason that we are indecisive is because if we don't do it, and we have that fear of missing out that got us into this course but can't get us over, right? If we don't do it, and we should have, that's going to hurt a little bit less when you talk about how we should have done this, we should have bought more Bitcoin, we should have bought more real estate, all this stuff, right? But if you do something and you screw up your finances and your family has foreclosed on your home, guess what? You're getting fired, right? And by that, I mean you get divorced. You're right. It's going to get really bad, right? So the price of messing up intellectually and emotionally and maybe even practically is greater than the price of missing out, right? So that is the two fears that we've got to overcome. The fear of missing out, which gets people to the table and listen to this podcast, and then getting them over that fear of messing up. Now, how do we get them over that fear of messing up, right? We've got to show them multiple ways that they can secure their bet, right? Saying, hey, if this happens, we do this. If this happens, we do this. If this happens, we do this, right? We run through these analysis with them and saying, hey, are you comfortable with this risk? Because there is no such thing as a risk-free deal. There's going to be inherent risk in everything. We just got to understand what they are. We got to be able to absorb them, and that's where financial planning comes in, is not making any too large of a bet on any one thing, right? And we got to know that, hey, we got to eliminate the chance of messing up that bad, right?
Right. Yeah, man. I think, for people who are listening that are brand new, you need to focus on bringing in revenue. Revenue needs to be in first position right off the bat, right? But like when you get revenue, when you start to make money, and when you start to get stabilized, and it may take some time, then you're like, okay, do I want to take this to the next level or do I want to spread it out, right? I agree, you should always be looking at different baskets to put your eggs in, because you don't want to put it all in one basket, right? But you want to also create this ecosystem, this word ecosystem that I've been using here lately, the last couple of weeks, where everything feeds everything, right? Our real estate, our real estate feeds our title company feeds the fund, the real estate feeds the fund, the coaching feeds the title company, and once you really take a step back after you've started making money and you start looking at it, like there are so many things that you can do, but there has to be this point in time where you master the one thing, you put systems and processes in place, and then you start looking at all these other things too, right? I think it's very, very important to master that one thing first and make sure, like, get out of your job, get to do it, or, even if you want to do it on the side, hit a revenue that makes you happy, and then take the rest and start investing in it in other places, right?
Totally, right. So you're echoing Gary Keller's The One Thing, right? Founder of Keller Williams Real Estate. And what's that one thing that if you just master, it's going to make everything in your life or your business that much better? But when you're talking about, okay, once we start revenue, we start making money. I've got a story to tell you. I've got a client that he's a crypto hoe. He is. He had $1 million of crypto. The next quarter, he had 300,000. Right? And I'm like, okay, what did we learn? What do we learn? He goes, I should have taken some of my winnings, right? Should have taken some of my winnings. So now on the other hand, that million could have gone to $2 million at a different time, right? And, you look at Bill Gates, right? So Bill Gates diversified from Microsoft stock. His, I think, third or fourth in command, Steve Ballmer, did not, right? And now Steve Ballmer is wealthier than Bill Gates is, right? So it's a constant balancing act. Nobody's got the crystal ball. But it is looking at this and saying, okay, we've got to know what the risks are. We got to be able to absorb the risk. We got to be able to spread these risks out a little bit here.
Right. Yeah. Usually we're coming up on time right now. Usually what I do is ask you for some advice for these guys. But I think this whole podcast has been nothing but advice, right? You gotta get started. You got to get on the right track. You need to get a mentor. You need to, find somebody who's going to advise you on how to properly place your money. There's so many different things you can do, but number one, you've just got to take action.
You got to take action.
One of my coaches says you got to take massive imperfect action. Even if you don't get it right, you still took action, right? You're still better than 90% of the other people who are just going to say, well, the next year, well, I'll do it next year, or hey man, I wish I would have done that 30 years ago. I had the opportunity, but I didn't pull the trigger,
That's right. And I tell you what, if you're listening to this and you feel like you're one of those people that hasn't pulled the trigger in the past, just know this, right? And this was what one of my coaches and mentors told me. It's like, Alan, you're a visionary. You got big goals here. But what happens is you get halfway through, you realize how far you are from your goal, and it actually slows you down, right? And it's demoralizing. And what I said is, hey, stop focusing. Yes, we want to have the end vision. We want to have the end goal. We got to have the end in mind. But day to day, next step. Hey, what's the next step we got to do here, right? What is that very next step that we've got to do in this marathon of life here to get us going in that right direction? And I feel like too many people are getting ready to get ready, and they're stuck in cement, and their feet are stuck in cement because they have this end goal that's massive. They want to accomplish all this stuff, but they really, you gotta define it down to some very easy, actionable, simple steps just to get going. And once we get a few steps in, all of a sudden we have momentum.
Right, exactly. Well, tell us, number one, how can we get the book? And number two, how do we talk to you? How do we get a hold of you?
Yeah. So if you go to my website, empowered-money.com, that's empowered-money.com. You can not only get the book, but there's assessment on there. That's a 10-minute free financial plan. Gives you an idea of where you are. It's really hard to know where we're going if we don't know where we already are. And financial planning is not a scale that you can stand on. The first question is, how are we currently doing, right? So if you do that assessment, 10 minutes, complimentary, and then from there you can get the book. You can even schedule a meeting with me if you want. Obviously, you can find me on LinkedIn, Alan Franks, and then, hey, here's the deal. Let's just say you want to talk real estate one day. Here's my cell phone. I'll give you my cell phone, 706-202-642. Hasn't changed. My first phone number I've ever gotten, right? So if you want to talk real estate and financial planning, give me a call there, and would love to chat with you.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's go-giving right there. Well, man, I won't take up any more of your time. We should probably have a part two of this because I'm sure we could continue talking for another hour. Man, thank you so much for being on, and thanks for sharing.
Thanks, Wyatt.
Hey, guys, if you heard something that you were interested in, you're like, man, I'd like to get into real estate, or I'd like to invest passively with you guys in real estate, then you can just go to ascendyoursuccess.com or fundyoursuccess.com, or you can just DM me. DM me on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, whatever you got me on. And if you don't have me, you need to go find me. But until next time, we'll see you guys later. Sweet.